everyone. We're back for a new episode of our design system journey with Tess. Hello, Tess. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm fine. I'm doing well right now. I did a lot of new stuff, and yeah, that's good. Especially we just released a new page on the Backlight website dedicated to those streams. This one and the coding design system one with George on Tuesdays. So so we now have dedicated pages with a recap and everything in it and the schedule for the next episode upcoming. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. This is really cool to do.
Cool,
So
yeah. How's
yeah.
been your Twitch experience so far?
So far so good, I guess. It's an interesting thing, you know. We are just trying to, I don't know, improve it and make it more interesting for people, for us. And but yeah, that's cool. That's good, a really good
'Cause
experience.
I remember we were also like thinking about should we have it on Twitch or just have it as a live stream on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. The fact is, right now we don't have that much engagement on Twitch for the moment, so we don't have a lot of discussions on Twitch. But it's a nice platform, I guess, at least for streaming. After that, all episodes will go to YouTube. So yeah, that's a good thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great. And you know, because I miss events a lot because we still don't have in-person events with conferences and so on. It's a good way, well, yeah, a good way to stay in touch with the community and with you people. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And in the end we started also this session of ours on Thursdays because we wanted to just as a team discuss these things anyway. So we thought why not just like let others watch in
Yeah,
case anything interesting comes out of these sessions, right?
yeah, that's it. And in fact, we didn't do it for a long time now, so I'm really happy to have this new one once again because I miss you too, you know. So
Yes, I miss you too.
yeah.
I think it's yeah, we don't have the setup of an office, and I don't think our company ever will anyway. We are all well, fully going to be remote the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this kind of engagement that happens at least once a week with your colleagues, it doesn't happen so much when you're working from home. And so if we force ourselves to be part of this and make it happen no matter what, I think it really it brings some nice vibe again to the work that we have to do every week.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I do agree. And yeah, we need to find a way to, you know, just force yourself to improve the way you are working, keep your mental health something in a great shape. And I'm finally discovering that forcing myself to have some kind of routines and doing the same thing every day or every week. Like I always wanted to improve my slide deck and my slide theme, but I didn't have enough time, so I'm always postponing it. And each time I'm working on a new slide deck, I just copy pasting some bunches of code, and I'm just no, I shouldn't do that. I have to improve it. So I finally decided to do it once a week, every Monday for just an hour. I just take 1 hour to improve my theme and make some changes, and it's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, well, definitely. I agree. Like setting some fixed schedule blocks of things that you need to work on does help. Otherwise, I guess it works the same for you as for me. And by you, I mean like developers, as me, designer. That you can get distracted and just like
Mm.
see a next nice thing to fix over here, and just like lose track of what you wanted to achieve
Yeah,
and to start with.
yeah, it's a good thing, and I'm definitely not a routine people. You know, I always love when things are messy and I could do a lot of things and so on. But yeah, having regular things and regular stuff at some point every time, every week, every day, it's a good thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So actually want to share with you an image that I prepared about design systems this week because we have this page in Backlight that starts to describe design systems and what it is. And before it had a very simple image in it. Let me see if I can find the way the image was before. Actually, I don't know if it's been updated already. It has been updated. I'll have to dig the the image, but leave it. I'll just show you the new one. So
Hmm.
basically, the concept was how do we explain what is a design system and yeah, all the things around it, right? And I mean, there's plenty of different graphics out there that others have tried to put together to represent this. So this one is the one that I did. In the center of it, we have the documentation site, so it's represented here by a little like example of a website and all the little parts.
Hmm.
And of course, the documentation site on itself is an entire universe. We could zoom in into the details of like, the guidelines for the how-tos on using a component or the guidelines with the example of the code and how do you get the code from like the live component or like how do you maintain all this information. That's a whole another beast. um, and around it, we have this wheel of the elements that make up that documentation, right? Being component library and design kit, the kind of two sort of opposites and at the same time connected, one side from the engineer and the other from designers. And the things feeding both of these universes, the design tokens and content design, that goes around what the UX writers are going to be responsible for. And the design tokens, I didn't really assign anybody to it. Like, it doesn't belong to designers or to engineers because it's kind of, I guess, agnostic to anybody.
Mm.
And there's an entire universe on that thing in itself that we have a Deb3C community helping define all this. And this is kind of like the little wheel of design system image that I made this week. So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a really nice approach. Before that, we tried something where like from a triangle shape,
Yeah,
we had the token at the center, and we finally nurture every part of the design token, like design kit and design components and documentation from the design tokens. But um, it's interesting in the way that there are can kind of things that seems to be opposite, like design kit and components library, when they're finally the same thing, but in different views, one from the design side and one from the engineer's side. And same thing, I guess, for the design tokens and content design. They're both complementary, but in an opposite way, we can present them. So, yeah, I do like this vision, especially with the documentation at the center, because, yeah, I don't know, it's finally a key of your existing design system. You can't limit your design system to just a, a bunch of design files or a bunch of components in your code. It's really more than just that. So,
yeah, exactly. And also, even if you make a component library available for your developers or a design kit available to your designers, if it's not documented and people don't understand how to use it, then it's just going to be another bunch of things
yeah,
out there, right?
yeah, sure. So, yeah.
And maybe like because what we're trying to do with this FigJam file is to create a roadmap of like when you talk about design systems, what are the things that you need to look into? And with this new image, indeed, like we're putting documentation at the center, but of course, it's like a chicken and egg kind of thing. Like what starts first, right? Like I guess you can't start with documentation if you're talking about a design system. You have to start with the components, right?
Hmm, that's an interesting question. Um, in
What do you
the
think?
in the coding design system show with George, George often start a new design system by in Backlight by declaring few tokens and first trying to document them
Okay,
and
interesting.
creating a documentation for them, which is just a way to display the different token values, like creating a tokens to getting color tokens and having a documentation page that just displays the tokens.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what is the best approach because um, I'm trying to build a new design system for to mimic the Wordle game by creating a set of components to recreate the board game. And
Mhm.
finally, I have declared a few tokens because I don't need a bunch of tokens for this one. It's a really simple interface, and I didn't documented anything right now. I just started coding few components and having the stories to display them. And by displaying the stories for the different components, I'm also displaying the tokens values because I can see the spacings and the fonts and the colors and so on. So, um,
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
but it's it's a risky approach. You know, it's tricky because you will probably start to um, code some components and finally never take time to document properly your tokens and so on. So we should probably educate people and ourselves first to first try to document things and then after use it. But it's always a bit frustrating, you know, just spending time of documentation when you just want to start to build something or
Yeah.
create something. Yeah, no.
And for a developer, what does it mean to document a component?
Um, for a component, it's probably just um, displaying the basic use of the component, how to use it, and like a simple getting started, and having a way to show the different variants, and
Hmm.
and and probably the edge cases because you know coding the most common use case is just 20% of the job. The whole 80% is just to code everything that are just edge cases like errors, displaying issues, what we when the component isn't properly loaded and so on. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, we've got a nice comment in the chat. By semesters that saying, in my opinion, design systems start with designed components and docs, then tokens, then development. From the design docs onward on real design system, docs can start in parallel with dev.
So yeah, um, we have here an opinion around actually starting the whole design system from design, which is something that we do quite differently in Div Riot and Backlight because well, the company that we work for, the startup, started with a group of developers setting up design systems. And so you guys are heavily like, nah, we just start coding. Like we don't have designers, so how are we gonna start a design system from design? Right? And which brings me to the meme that I created for this week. Let me show you
Yeah.
because it's a fun meme. Like I also sometimes get inspired to just like make a meme that we can publish in our meme Fridays on Backlight. So I'm gonna spoil the surprise of tomorrow. I don't know if we're gonna post this one tomorrow, but it's like since design systems are also for developers, shouldn't it be called design systems?
I really love it.
It's cute, isn't it? Plus, it's a retro meme. I love memes. But anyways, like yeah, I guess the problem is the word or the term for design systems has a strong connotation to design, right? I mean, it's in the name. But developers, I think, have now embraced it and actually used it to much further or like made a more concrete thing out of it. And of course, it goes hand in hand, right? You can't have a design kit and call it a design system because you probably should have the component library with it, the coded one. So yeah, start with uh, it from a perspective of starting from design can be like a luxury for those who have a designer in the team, and if they don't, then you're gonna start from development.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but yeah, cut first, design later. Come on, people. Yeah, it's it's a trend finally because especially when you're working on a really young project, you know, you are building a startup, you're starting from scratch. You want to show something, so you're starting with a lot of code by burning everything in the code base rather than just taking a step back and first think to your design and so on. But it's not always that easy to just abstract ourselves from what we are trying to produce to just, you know, do a step right before to think everything in the global overview of a design. And
yeah, I'm gonna put it as a question mark. Do you start from design? And yeah, not sure. I mean, I guess that there is no right answer, right? Because if you don't have a designer and you would benefit from reusing elements that you call components, well, maybe you don't have a design system yet. Maybe you just have a component library, but why not turn it into a design system that whoever onboards later on will benefit from? And that also sparks me an interesting question. When does a component library evolve into a design system? If that's the scenario, if the scenario is you're just a developer and you want to reuse items and now you set yourself a component library,
mm,
when do you grow it into being a design system?
mm, yeah, that's not that easy. Um, Honestly, I don't have a good answer in this one because I'm often wondering, okay, am I just building a new set of components that I could reuse somewhere, or is it something more complex? What is making a design system from the code side, you know?
Mm.
Because we can't just limit that to a bunch of variables and a few set of reusable components. It should be something more complex than that, or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I think to be a design system, you definitely need a little bit more than just some variables and some reusable elements. You need the documentation. It
Yeah.
just goes hand in hand, right? So if you just have a set of components and variables, but you don't really document the reusability of it,
Mm,
then maybe like the design system exists, but inside your head, right? Because you know
yeah.
of the existence of those components, you know how to use them. Now, I guess yeah, that's a good point where we could start defining when does it become a design system? It's when more people need to use it because it will force you to document that,
Okay,
right?
that's interesting um because do you consider that working alone on a set of components doesn't really make it a design system if you don't document them?
I don't think so. Then I think you're just with a component library
Mm,
because the design system needs, or at least the way I think that the term is evolving in the industry, you start expanding into patterns, you start expanding into reusability of much more than just a button, right?
mm,
Or the definition of that button being a primary button with that specific color. I think it like you start getting more layers of complexity. Um, but yeah, Sir Mister also mentions that here that for these questions, he thinks it also depends on what kind of component library you have. Like, is it designed or developed, or
mm,
is it dev-signed
mm.
component library?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do love this term, you know, to dev design.
I'm gonna.
We
I should
we
patent it if somebody has
yeah,
used it before,
we should
because
we should evangelize
honestly,
on this one. That's interesting. So what is from your designer perspective? What is um, what um, what difference do you see between a collection of themable components and a whole design system?
Mhm. Let me just put it here so maybe I can start writing down difference between a collection of what was the word that you used?
I
Collect.
guess themable components.
Yeah, themable components and a design system. Yes, and a design system. Mm, I would say I'm gonna put it in post-its because then we can see it like a as this is a sort of a workshop.
Mm.
Um, the main difference between a set of themable components and design system is, I would say, the documentation of it. Like um, to have a what's the word? Like accompanying. I'm not sure if I'm gonna spell this right. Accompanying um, set of requirements and definitions for the use of those components. Definitions for the use of these components. I would say that that's one criteria. Um, but of course, like this is also just my personal opinion, right? I
Yeah.
don't think we have a set of guidelines that like it's being agreed worldwide, like, oh, it
Mhm.
is only a design system if XYZ, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's plenty of like um interesting resources, like books that talk about it, and we started listing some of them. Like, yeah, this one definitely will have more criterias on defining a design system,
Mm.
but yeah, I think the main thing is like to kind of like not leave it too simple, or maybe adding too much complexity to the design system makes it like more untangible. Don't
Mhm.
know. But if you just leave it like a collection of themable components, it also just feels like, but you're not really putting in all the work that needs to be in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Maybe it's something too low level and not evolved enough to really
Exactly. Yeah.
compose a design system, because a design system without complexity is just not a system. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I do agree with this one. I in fact I often go back to this definition of a design system is what is making your brand unique. And
Mm,
finally, I guess it's a I don't know if it's a common definition of a design system, but to me it's a good thing to keep in mind every time I'm thinking about design system ecosystem. What it is, how does it work? It's what is making your brand unique. So a collection of teamable components are just a large collection of components, but it doesn't make your brand unique in the sense of if everyone could reuse it. um,
mm,
every new project, every new product will finally have the same look and feel and the same experience, which could be nice in a way, but um, probably not what you're expecting. If we take the material design as an example,
yeah.
it was something built from the Google teams to improve the global user experience on the Android devices. Because prior of that, it was just a nightmare with just some kind of shades and grayish backgrounds and buttons and so on. And finally, by making it accessible to every kind of developers, every new Android application is able to fit in the common experience of the user on the Android device. So finally, having the material design or materialified things, frameworks for any kind of components, etc., make your application um, Android looking. And finally, this is exactly what the material design system is made for, is to power a global experience across different application on the same device.
Ooh. And that's to your point on indeed, like you start having a design system the moment that those themable components actually also make up the branding language of your application or website or
I guess so.
making it unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, indeed. Because yeah, otherwise you also could possibly end up with just a set of reusable things, but that don't really match up nicely together, or that
Mm.
are reused in like improper ways, because and therefore making it not consistent, right? Because you could have the same. Well, the fact that in most design systems we already have like 5 different types of buttons, and then you just start using these buttons however you feel like in each different screen, you're not really following design systems standards, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. There's a statement from Sir Mister. A design system offers the opportunity to give the user a similar, if not the same, experience across your platform using the same brand and design system. Why am I always writing design system as a name, not a thing? Yeah, only by capitalizing the D and the S.
Yeah. Same thing here.
Because yeah, no, that's true. Like I often also get confused on when I'm writing blog posts about it, how to define these things. Yeah, and I think this is an interesting and I copied by the way the registration mark. Love it. I should actually know, you know what? Because I'm a designer, I'm gonna do it like this. Dev is actually not relevant, small, and Zine is the right one because more strong to design, more power to design. The F there is like
And if we capitalize the D and the E and just keep the V
the V.
and the small, okay.
Oh, like this.
Right.
It's like a little note
As a
there.
developer, I'm trying, just to have a place somewhere in the
Exactly.
design system. Let me put my component just here. So yeah,
Exactly. Well, it could even just be like out of place as well. I'm gonna make this logo like this.
yeah, it's a really good idea.
Oh, like this. Oh wait. Ah. And this is not like a graphic design software. It's just like a more of a whiteboard software. Like when you do like
Yeah, and
a
it's
little
just
check mark.
yeah, a little check in the words. Yeah, oh, I'm missing a
Oh
letter.
my god, this is a great logo. Yes, you need to register this logo. Something like that.
Mm.
Love it. Cool. Yeah. So I think in the end, these more philosophical questions, like when I watch people talking about design systems, we tend to be very broad in these concepts and just like always trying to define them or discuss them.
Mhm.
But often I find, I mean, I also love to just to philosophize, to yeah, to think about these things and come up with reasoning and arguments around it. But I think like if you look at this map that we're trying to build here, I always try to bring myself back to like, okay, how can we make this practical? How can we give proper directions in these important, conundrums of like, but what is a design system and where does it start? Is it design development? So I always try like, I think what is important from these sessions between you and I is that we do touch on these more philosophical ideas, but then what can we bring from these discussions
Mhm.
into like actionable items for a person or ourselves working with a design system, right? Do you think it's worth for example, the developers in our team to always, I don't know, answer this question for themselves? Like, am I here just building another component library or am I actually setting up a design system? Do you think it helps
Hmm.
in the day-to-day work?
I guess I guess that it depends the kind of person that you're. To me, but it's totally my personal opinion. It may be important because I will probably don't have um, the same degree of importance on some items if this is just a collection of stuff that I want to use, or if it's something that I really want to improve, keeping time, sustain, and share with the rest of a group, people, community, teammates, you name it. So, so sure. See you next time. And so yeah, it's it's an important question, I guess, because it will probably make some sense in the way you organize the work between the
Mm,
different people in the team. You know, it's probably different if you are working on the design system. Um, each time you have to work on the UI and you have to make some changes in the UI of some components. If it's a design system, you will probably want to have more feedback and more exchange with the design teams rather than
right.
if you are just trying to improve a button somewhere and you are just fixing something
Yeah.
in the wild. So,
Nice. No, and the fact that indeed you found a good reason for philosophical questions to happen and to be part of a process within the design system team. I want to add here to our section, sort of our, yeah, thank you for following up on like, let's make it more practical. Yes. So um, I guess we could put this as a tip for when eventually when we make this sort of a guideline process around design systems, that we will have this region of tips or this combination of things to make sure you include within your process, one of
Mhm.
them being add, let me see how I can phrase this, add or think about existential questions, no, like think about concepts or encourage your teammates to question um, more broad aspects of design systems in order to um, how can I say it, in order to
Mm,
make decisions relevant
mm,
or help the decision making process. Hopefully I will be able to expand on this later. I just want to write it down. So yeah, like I definitely agree with it. Like, because I think I get hung up on the fact that we can go to events and talk about design system and always go round and around as like the importance of it and who starts and blah blah blah. But
mhm,
I engage in these conversations and it's really nice to think about these things. But on a day to day life, somebody working in a design system team, it becomes very difficult to like take something away from these conversations. But now you made a good point, and I think that's a relevant tip. Um, well, in the end, having these conversations does help you in the future to define or to make decisions around the path that you're taking and the people that you're involving in. So if you don't even think about the design system from more a like holistic perspective like this, you would just go around making components,
mm,
styling them and not
yeah.
getting the full benefit of the design system.
Mm,
Cool. I think that yeah, that also gives me an idea for like a, a bubble around here we should look into.
mm,
Um, just yeah, some like actionable items for people working with design systems and how they can benefit from it.
mhm, mm.
And
I guess that another question that comes with that is, um, I am working on something right now that is really important for the brand and the personality of the product that we are building, or is it something just annex, that is not
Mm,
really that important in it? And that's interesting because in what we are doing right now at the Riot with backlight and so on, we are also experimenting ourselves, and we're just dogfooding our own products. And we, for you folks that are on watching the stream, we are also working on reshaping the design system behind the backlight editor by itself, and you are is actually working on reshaping and redesigning the landing page of backlight and so on. And all of that, I guess, at some point will converge to a unique personality of the product, what it is in terms of um, communication, marketing, presentation, UI experience on the product itself, on the end, and so on. And it's interesting because it was made before with just few pieces that we finally pick a color and pick a gradient and pick a font and trying to improve things, but it's not a standardized or something with a your mind really oriented to that point at
mm.
some point. And it's not easy to just when you're working on something, just um, take a few time to just think, am I working on something that is really impacting the personality of the whole product that we are building, or I am just putting a new header somewhere and that's all. And
I think with that, you make a good point that is around like product design, right?
mhm,
And the concern that yeah, a lot of the product designers out there, but I would say even developers and managers and owners always have in the back of the mind is like, yes, what's the impact of the product, and are the users understanding everything? But basically, you're bringing this concern that normally sits with yeah, the people who are making the end product to your end user. You bring in this concern to the ones actually touching on the design system. So, and I guess it does make an interesting point with like the intention behind any action that you make when you're building a design system, because that intention will cascade down to the product
mm,
itself, right? So, and there's a couple of good talks out there when they mention that you should like a design system is a product and you should treat it like one. And I think that comes strongly from the experience of a few who've seen that the design system is, or the ones that they worked in their company, it was just like an afterthought. It's like,
mm,
yeah, maybe it's something that will help us, speed up process. But I think when it's seen and touched on like a product, then you really feel the impact of it, or the beneficial aspects of it to your end product. So yeah, I think I agree with you completely. Like, and if you could be embedded in everybody's actions as they're contributing to the design system,
mm.
it definitely helps.
That's interesting that you mentioned that the design system is a product by itself, because when I mentioned earlier that material design was here to have a consistent experience on all the Android devices across whole the application running on the Android platform. Um, I was also thinking that, okay, but if I am just working on a single application, or just a single product, or something really simple, do I really need a design system to do so? Do I just have to, I don't know, build my product and variabilize some things like colors and fonts and that sort of? Do I really need a design system? But if you consider the design system as a product by itself, then you'll start by having an ecosystem of product. You've got your design system and you've got your final product, and both are two parts of an existing ecosystem, and then you do have to keep the experience consistent. So considering the design system as a product itself is finally the best entry point to I don't know, the design systemish ecosystem where
I think I prefer this definition that you mentioned, like the ecosystem of products.
mm,
And when you put the end product on the same level as the design system, then I think that the level of importance and dedication becomes more relevant when they're both on the same level. You know what I mean?
mm,
And I think, well, some of the struggles that I had faced before was around, yeah, this always being seen as something like down there, or let's say up here, like not really relevant, or, just like too far away from the end product, even though it heavily impacts the end product. But the thing is, I think what some teams get into, how can I say it? Like, the problems that they're getting to is because um, they focus on getting like the end product out there
mm,
as quickly as possible, no matter the shortcuts. And so designers go quickly designing something, putting something together, so they will forget about using the libraries. Developers will go there, start coding super quickly, forget about using the component, or like they see that there is something that it could reuse, but they just think like, oh no, I need to get it done as
mm,
quickly as possible and skip contributing to the design system. And so I think that kind of puts a lot of the emphasis on the end product, and then you keep forgetting that you should maybe split your time and put some dedication on design system because it will be beneficial in the long run. But unless we have real numbers on those benefits, like how much time does it save to everybody, how
mm.
much yeah eff- like effort is saved, not just time but like actually like coding effort or design effort from not spending that time on the design system. I think until you have those numbers really clear, people will still fall back on like, I can just do it quickly if I just add this one line, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. And
It,
it's something really complex to measure because it's you often have this impression that you are wasting your time, I could do it more quickly, I could do it um in another way, and it would be easier, it would be simpler, it would be, but it will be also probably something that we will trash at some point, or that will constitute technical debt because it's not maintainable at all. So so
yeah. Then we fall into the. I should put here like, is there a black one of these? Like a black hole of technical debt.
is there something like technical debt on the design side?
Oh
Do
yeah,
you
design
have an
debt.
equivalent?
Definitely. Design debt. So basically, I think similar to what the technical debt is, the design debt is like, I know we're not consistent with the usage of this color. Like I use this gray for these three things, and I should be using for this fourth thing, but I don't have time to think about it, and I just chose another color for that fourth thing, and I need to revisit that thought.
Mm,
So there is a design debt in that aspect, and there is also like the technical design debt. Like you work on design files, and ideally you would end up with a good layer naming and ordering and groupings, but you just want to be quick, so you just paste things like however,
yeah.
and then you end up with an ugly design file, which if you're never going to touch it again, sure, that's fine. But that's not the case for when you're working in a team, right? When you're working in a team, you're probably sharing those files. So I've experienced previously the colleagues that told me about, because I was like sort of the design ops from a design team. So I was figuring out what were the struggles between designers, and I knew that some designers had to work with files from other designers, and they would just go crazy. they would prefer to just see it as an image and redo it the way that they are familiar with because of their structure that they use. Because trying to understand the layering and how that person built that design, they're just like,
Hmm.
nah, I can't, I can't even.
Okay, that's interesting. Does it mean that we need to have a system to describe the way you are sharing those design files, the expectations from the developer teams?
Hmm.
Doesn't it makes finally part of your design system? The way you
Sure.
are
Well,
exchanging the
I would
information.
say it could be design system or it could be design operations. So
Mhm.
I think design operations as a term and as an industry is also growing a lot. And it kind of feels like, yeah, it's the concern of like how do you operate around design? And design system, maybe we could leave it as in this bubble of it's the component libraries, documentation, and the guidelines in general. But if you say that describing how to deliver a design file is a guideline, then yeah, it's over there on the edge between being part of a design system or a design operations aspect, right?
Yeah, yeah. I see.
Um,
Wow.
but like the same way as developers have to do it for the components, you have to describe how you use a
Yeah.
component. Maybe, I mean, do you guys also have to describe like if you're building an application together, like you're three developers or 10 developers working on the same application? Do you have to describe to each other how you built a specific feature of that
Mm,
application?
yeah, we could. I guess the stories are made for this point. Exactly, but in a more abstracted way, we're finally how to say that. Um, my vision is that everything that we develop should be API oriented,
Mm,
not in the sense of having a headless API running on a server or something like this.
right.
It should be, but not only that. Every component has its very own API, and this API describes the way the component is working and is interacting with the rest of the ecosystem of components in the application and so on. This is why we're recommending to use TypeScript to type the content when you develop, because you could declare interfaces with props and so on.
Mm,
And I'm sure that having this mental model of everything should be API oriented in your code base mean that you have to be consistent, because the way you are using a button and a link, which are doing more or less the same thing in your interface, that
mm-hmm,
is routing at some point, should have the same kind of API, because they are dedicated to the same task, even if there are few minor differences between the both of them. So
I really like this approach, and but I have to be honest, it's hard for me to think. I mean, if I know a bit of code, I understand what you mean by API, and I think in general, like it's more and more a knowledge that we all share. But it's still quite a foreign um, scenario for designers, right? To even like fully grasp what you mean by everything should be API. And of course, you're talking from a development perspective for your developer colleagues. But I wonder, is there like a way for us to visualize what does it mean to make something an API oriented thing?
hmm,
Could we
um,
simplify into like a schematic of sorts?
I'm pretty sure that we can represent that in the form of a, I don't know, a graph, something like
Yeah.
this. I have this component, and this component is expecting those information as an
Mm.
input, and is delivering those kind of informations as an output. And um, and this is basically the definition of a graph. You
Hmm.
have an element, and you have an inputs and outputs, and um, you could build a galaxy of interaction between different elements this way.
So what's the output again? So you said you have a set of expected inputs and
Yeah,
what's
and a set of outputs. So yeah,
oh,
let's
you used another words that I now missed, but yeah, um, because I'm just gonna make it like this and then I'll post. Yeah, I like this. I think this is interesting. It goes like this. Oh wait, need more space. There. I should remember that I was in the arrow function. Why doesn't it remember? Like sometimes, the applications don't behave as we would expect. But hey, okay, yeah. So yeah, this is the definition of an API, isn't it? Input
yeah.
output. So I wonder if we can um when we talk about, because you asked me like, oh, is there a way to, or should you make a system to describe how design files should be delivered or shared? And I wonder, yes, if we would be able to kind of like turn everything into an API. And so, sharing design files.
Mhm,
What's the API? What's the expected input for sharing a design file? Because we can see as the universe or like the action is share the file.
mhm.
What's the expected input? What's the expected output?
Exactly.
Nice. No, I think this is an interesting
Mhm.
concept. And again, I
Yeah.
wish we had enough time in our hands to make a blog post about this, like now. Right.
Let's start writing right now. We got
Exactly.
4 minutes. It's enough.
No, but I think this is an interesting topic in general. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely would like to expand on this. Yeah, I can never. No, I need a pencil. I can't do this properly. Here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it
You
like
need
this.
a Wacom tablet, to work.
Yeah,
We are
exactly.
working with a stylus,
Those are really
um,
nice.
and
Nice.
yeah, finally, what yeah, I use the term API, but finally, the less technical term is probably the term of contract. This is a contract between the different parts of your team, your application, and so on. And this this idea of contract is probably at heart of the what is a design system. Design
Mm,
tokens are a contract between designers and developers.
yeah, yeah. And so you're saying the guidelines from how to use like the APIs from the component. Let's say the TypeScript example you were given. Um, you would say that's a contract between the two developers. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
an interesting thing that is coming is something from the development area. There's something named web contract that is a way to declare components, web components, and saying at runtime, okay, when you are using this component, you should use this kind of information as an input, and you will get those kind of informations as an output. And if you pass something that is not intended, then you will throw an error because
Ah,
the component isn't supposed to handle those kind of information. And it's interesting because um, yeah, we're I don't know, enforcing and securing in certain way the way we are building an ecosystem of elements inside a global thing that is an application, a solution, a product, and so on.
yeah, no, definitely. I think that's very interesting because it was something that it was always, I think, a goal for the team I was working with in setting up the design system. That not only would we wanted to make the components available, we also wanted people to use it the right way. And now, if you enforce the usage of the right way,
Mm.
then it's even better. So it's like embedding already the unit tests, a
Yeah,
sort, right?
yeah. This is something like that. To be honest, it's an attendee at the last conference I was that who told me about this web
Okay,
contract stuff. I didn't know them before that, so I have to dig in it. But
nice.
it's a really interesting topic because yeah, we do need solution like this, not to constrain people or constrain use, but really to have something more where we could be more confident in what we are building and what we're working
Yeah.
together.
No,
So yeah.
definitely. I think, especially because it's easy to forget to, set some items there, or to define some things that should be defined for any good web application or website or whatever. And if you forget to, yeah, put those settings in, then it's just you might have issues with accessibility, for example.
Mm,
And if those requirements are embedded in the contract, then yeah, it's the expected inputs. Like make sure you fill all of them, even if some of them should just be like null or non-existent.
mm,
But at least you know that you have to fill those requirements in order to get these expected outputs. I really like to see it this way, actually, as you described it, because it's like make sure that this information is there. These things are expected from you,
mm.
and the same should be in design. Like,
Yeah.
but more from a putting like from using the components together in the process of designing the product, like the end product. You should have some expected inputs. Like if you're designing a form, in which the user is going to fill in like um, their first name, second name, and address, and submit the form. We expect this, especially if you're working with a scenario of, you know, um, the user is required to fill these
Mm,
fields. So don't forget that you should have the required little label in there, which is, by the way, part of your design system. But just because we give you a component that has the required label, because we want to make it a reusable component for many scenarios, you will have the scenario that the required label is not there. So yeah, but make sure that if you fill this criteria, or if you're working
mm.
with this scenario, that you know these expected these inputs are expected. And now I have a problem with the word input because it confuses with inputs from forms. But anyways.
Anyways, but it's interesting because it leads to the semantic part of the web.
Hmm.
Yeah, we could build everything with just divs and just nesting blocks, but this is not the way the web is built. We have this semantic information, and this is important because this is a form of contract between the editor and the reader. And I am displaying here a title because this is an important part of what you are reading, and it will describe what you will read after that, and so on. So, so yeah, this notion of contract is, I guess, it's essential.
It is. And it kind of also brings me to the universe that I'm a big fan of, which is blockchain.
I know.
Because it's all about smart contracts, and now just because you're using this word, I'm already like my brain is going on like, okay, design systems and blockchain. All right. No, we have something here, because we have smart contracts. Yes. Yes. If this expected input is filled, you're gonna get this output. And that can be on a blockchain.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It was definitely a nice addition to our little bubble of design systems. One day I'm going to like extract these information into a nice. I feel that this should be a website on itself. Like everything that we put in here
yeah,
can generate like information for a full like
yeah. Since
encyclopedia of design system kind of thing,
oh, I do like this idea.
right?
This is great. This is great.
Cool.
Um, okay, awesome. Um, okay, something that you want to share to close the session
Well,
with
let's make it
everyone?
happen next week, and you know, force ourselves to be here once a
Yeah,
week, no matter what, because it's just good for us to share ideas. You're participating in a lot of events, and you should just share with me what you're learning on the development world, and I'll share with you what I'm learning in the design world as well.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you very much for this new session. It was really good
Thank you.
to have you, and yeah, see you soon for the next episode.
See you next time.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.